The opening of this piece is about a person who is not used to being truly seen. The speaker begins by saying they won't explain this gently because what they are experiencing feels too intense and too real to soften. They describe a connection that didn't arrive through effort or planning. It simply appeared, the main idea. I built walls, but you didn't break them. You made them unnecessary. The speaker explains that they normally live in layers. They control what people see, how close people get, and how much of their inner world is revealed. This distance is not because they hate people. It is a way of protecting themselves. Then someone different appears. This person does not try to analyze them, label them, or force them to open up. Instead, they simply observe and understand. The speaker is surprised because most people try to solve what they don't understand, but this person accepts the mystery. The strongest emotional point in part 1 is recognition without explanation. The speaker feels like this person understands things that were never spoken. Noticing small changes, understanding, silence is sensing thoughts before they become words. This creates a feeling of rare connection, not based on history, but on similarity in the way both people think and experience the world. The conflict begins here. The speaker values control. They decide who gets access, who gets close, what parts of themselves remain hidden, but this person does not force their way in. They naturally bypass those defenses. That is why the speaker finds it unsettling, because being misunderstood was a form of protection, but being understood means there is nowhere left to hide. Main theme of part 1. A person who spent years protecting their inner world meets someone who makes them feel seen without demanding anything. And that feels both comforting and frightening. The biggest shift is this: they are no longer just noticing the person, they are being affected by their presence. The speaker explains that this person has entered their thoughts in a way they never expected. It is not described as a simple attraction or temporary feeling. Instead, it feels like an internal change. The key line of this section is the idea, "You're not something I think about anymore, you're something I think with." Meaning, thinking about someone keeps them separate. Thinking with someone means their presence has become part of your perspective. The speaker notices small changes. Their thoughts feel like they include another viewpoint. Silence feels meaningful instead of empty. Certain moments feel shared even when they are alone. This is difficult for the speaker because they are used to being self-contained. They normally process everything alone and maintain control over their inner world. But this person did not enter through force. They didn't demand attention. They didn't ask for trust. They didn't try to change the speaker. They simply existed in a way that created comfort. The speaker begins comparing this connection to other interactions. Not because others are bad, but because after experiencing a certain level of understanding, everything else feels less complete. The emotional tension grows because the speaker realizes this person has changed the normal they were used to. Before, distance was natural. Now distance feels different. Before, control protected them. Now control feels less necessary. The speaker calls this a structural change. Something deeper than a passing emotion. It has affected the way they think and perceive things. The hidden fear in part 2. What happens when someone becomes part of your world without you deciding to let them in? The speaker is not afraid of the person. They are surprised by how easily they fit. Main theme of part 2. A person who always controlled their emotions and boundaries realizes that someone has quietly become important, not by taking space, but by naturally belonging there. The speaker reaches a point where they can no longer pretend this connection is just something interesting or temporary. They recognize that it has already created an impact. The main idea, awareness, has turned into a responsibility. The speaker notices that this person has changed the way they experience things. Silence now feels different thoughts. Don't return to the way they were before they consider this person's perspective, even without trying. The important shift is that the speaker is no longer asking, "Is this real?" They are starting to ask, "What do I do with something this real?" This is a major turning point. The speaker admits they normally do not adjust their inner world for anyone. They are someone who analyzes, controls, and understands everything before allowing it to affect them. But this connection did not follow those rules. It happened naturally. The speaker realizes that they have already crossed a line internally. They have allowed this person to matter in a way they usually avoid. A powerful part of part 3 is the idea that some things cannot be undone just by creating distance, because the connection was not built through constant interaction or effort. It was built through recognition and understanding. The speaker also acknowledges a difficult truth. If this was something harmful or meaningless, they would have ended it already. Their usual pattern would be analyze it, find the problem, create distance, move on, but they didn't. They stayed, and that tells them something. The conflict now is not about whether the connection exists. The conflict is about accepting what it means. The speaker understands that undefined things cannot remain undefined forever. Eventually, something either becomes stronger or breaks under the weight of uncertainty. Main theme of part 3. The speaker realizes they have already made an emotional choice, not through words or actions, but by allowing someone to occupy a place they normally keep protected. The speaker is no longer describing a person who simply matters to them. They are describing someone who has become part of their internal world. The main idea: you didn't just enter my life, you changed the way I experience it. The speaker explains that this connection does not feel temporary or surface level. It has become something that affects their thoughts, reactions, and understanding of themselves. They notice that they have started viewing things differently. They process emotions differently. They see situations through a wider perspective. They recognize meanings they might have ignored before. The difficult part is that the speaker has always relied on independence. They were comfortable being the person who understands others, stays composed, controls. What they reveal protects their private thoughts. But now they are facing something they cannot fully control. This person has become a presence that feels natural rather than intrusive. The speaker struggles with the idea that something so powerful happened without permission. Usually, they choose what affects them. This time, they didn't choose. It simply happened. Another important theme appears: the difference between attachment and alignment. The speaker does not describe this as needing someone to complete them. Instead, they describe it as finding someone whose way of thinking matches theirs. It is not about losing themselves. It is about feeling understood without having to translate themselves. The speaker realizes that this kind of connection is rare because most people only respond to what is visible. This person seems to understand what exists underneath. That creates both comfort and fear. Comfort, because they feel seen. Fear, because being seen means they can no longer hide behind the version of themselves they carefully created. Main theme of part 4. The speaker accepts that this connection has changed their internal balance. The person is no longer just someone they recognize. They have become part of the way the speaker recognizes the world. This connection has become impossible to ignore. The speaker reaches the point where they understand that distance is no longer working the way it used to. Normally, distance gives them control. Distance allows them to protect themselves, stay independent, keep emotions, organized, avoid becoming vulnerable. But with this person, distance does not create separation. The speaker says, in essence, even when you are not here, your presence remains. This is the moment where the connection changes from something external into something internal. The speaker notices that this person has become part of their thinking process, not because they are dependent, but because their perspective has become meaningful. The emotional struggle is clear. The speaker wants to understand it logically. They want a reason, a definition, a clear explanation, but this connection does not behave like something they can simply analyze and categorize. It exists beyond labels. The speaker also recognizes something important. They have not been forced into this. There was no pressure, no demand, no attempt from the other person to take control. That is what makes it powerful. The person did not break the speaker's walls. They created a situation where the walls were no longer needed. The speaker begins accepting that they have already allowed this person closer than almost anyone else. The fear is not the connection itself. The fear is what happens if it continues. Because if something becomes part of your internal world, losing it does not feel like losing a person. It feels like losing a piece of the way you understand yourself. Main theme of part 5, the speaker realizes that the connection has moved beyond curiosity or emotion. It has become a permanent influence on their inner world, and they are forced to face how much it truly matters. Until this point, the speaker has been observing the connection, analyzing it, and trying to understand it. But now they realize something deeper. They are no longer just watching the change. They are living inside it. The speaker recognizes that something inside them has already shifted. They are different from who they were before this person became important. The change appears in small ways. Thoughts feel differentialence, carries meaning moments, feel connected, even without words. Understanding feels natural. Instead of forced, the speaker struggles because they have always believed that everything important should be controlled. They believe emotions should have boundaries, trust should be earned, slowly closeness should be intentional. But this connection did not follow the normal process. It developed without permission. The strongest realization in this part is, I did not decide to let you in, but I also did not stop you. That creates the inner conflict, because for someone who values control, allowing something to happen without resistance is already a choice. The speaker starts understanding that acceptance does not always come through words. Sometimes acceptance appears through behavior. Staying instead of leaving, listening instead of avoiding, allowing instead of controlling the person has become a place where the speaker does not feel the need to perform or protect themselves. And that is unusual. The speaker is not saying this person saved them. They are saying this person reached a part of them that was rarely reached. The fear now becomes clearer. If this connection continues, it may change the way they exist permanently, not by taking away who they are, but by adding something they never expected. Main theme of part 6. The speaker realizes that the biggest change is not that someone entered their life, it is that they allowed someone to affect the person they have always been.